You are now watching the Guru Perspective every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Welcome to a new episode of the Guru Perspective, and I'm your host, the Guru himself. I would like to say thank you all for chiming in. First and foremost, this was a really exciting football season, especially right now at the breaking point. We have situations that went on in college that I wasn't expecting, but even though when I figure it's not going to be high quality football, it always changes my mind when I see the games in general. It was a lot of upsets and really good games. Teams losing to ranked teams and other ranked teams losing to unranked teams this week in college football, NCAA. So I was very happy to see that. It's always good to see on any given Saturday now that you could get a good contest. And at this point on Friday as well, because it was a lot of upsets in college football. And I was really happy to watch and stay tuned and chime in and see what was going on take place and see how the scenario break down. It all started with the Louisville versus number two Miami. I was really surprised in the results of what happened in this game, but when I seen the game, I said, okay, it's looking kind of clear to me that something's not right with Carson Beck, and he didn't look good at all. That was one of the issues he had when he played with the Georgia Bulldogs. And that was one of the reasons why I feel like Gunnar Stockton was able to take over and, be the captain of that team. Carson Beck issues was when he was with the Atlanta Bulldogs, the Georgia Bulldogs, correction, he had problems taking care of the ball and giving up the ball on interceptions. This showed his ugly head in this game. I'm not thinking it's going to be a whole season thing, but he's going to have to clean that up if he want to compete and try to get into the playoffs, because that definitely was a blow that kind of hurt their chances, especially losing to an unranked team like Louisville on Friday. He had 271 yards, 25 to 35, but four interceptions, and that killed them on every drive they had. And the crazy part was it wasn't really too much of a run game that I expected as well. Mark Fletcher Jr., he had 18 yards on 8 carries and he had a touchdown. But at the same time, they had the wide receiver who did pretty well, and that's Malachi Tony. He had 9 receptions with 135 yards. He didn't have any scores, but on the other hand, I have to give credit to Louisville. The Louisville Cardinals, Miller Moss really looked exceptionally well. 248 through the air, 23 of 37, and two touchdowns on the day. And wide receiver was the recipient of them both. Chris Bell, he had 136 yards on 9 receptions and two scores. The final score was, even though he had those four interceptions, it was 24-21. And number two, Miami ended up losing to Louisville. But it was really a good game, especially to start off the weekend on Friday. And not only having that game be played, but then you turn around and then you have the next game, who I feel like who's very overrated, number 25, Nebraska versus a Minnesota team in the Big Ten. It was Big Ten competition. Dylan Raiola, I keep saying Dominique for some reason. I'm thinking about his dad, but Dylan Raiola looked pretty good in the game at some points, but he didn't do enough. I can't say that he had a stellar game. It was pretty mediocre. He just did some flashy plays, and I think that he's starting to do too much. And rather than trying to play Dylan Raiola football, he's starting to try to do more like what his mentor, Patrick Mahomes, does, and that's not working with you on a collegiate level. He had 177 yards, 17 to 25. And that was basically all the offense they really had. Besides that, you had the running back, Emmett Johnson, who had 63 yards on 14 carries. It wasn't really much. It was very pedestrian how they played and executed. They only had 6 points. On the other hand, Minnesota, a team that usually doesn't play as well on offense, usually have a strong and stout defense, actually stepped up. Drake Lindsey had 153 yards, 16 to 20, and a touchdown. But the hero of the game, Darius Taylor, the running back, he kept the team and held them on his back. 24 carries, 148 yards, and the score as well. That final score was number 25 Nebraska went down to the actually, the non-ranked Minnesota team. Actually, Minnesota's record is not as bad as I expected it to be, too. They're 5-2. So the Cornhuskers ended up losing to the Golden Gophers at 24-6. I wasn't really surprised in this because I felt like Nebraska was ranked too high, in my opinion. But at the same time, it doesn't matter to me anymore because now Michigan got that number 25 rank. So we're back in the top 25. Those were the Friday games. And I'm just already telling you the two teams, number 2 and number 25, got knocked off by non-ranked teams. So I was excited just for that alone. Then another game that was too close for comfort was Texas A&M versus Arkansas. Arkansas always been in every game this year. They've been playing exceptionally well. Just it's not going in the win column because back-to-back weeks they gave teams really scary, competition, and it was going down to the wire with some of these games. But still have to give credit where credit is due. At the time, we felt like Texas Tech was the best team in Texas. Not anymore. Marcel Reed, the quarterback, had 280 yards for Texas A&M, 23 32, and he had 3 touchdowns as well. Not only that, the running back, Ruben Owens II, executed and played well. He had 14 carries, 69 yards with 2 touchdowns. So that was really effective, the ground play. Ashton Bethel Roman, the wide receiver, had 83 yards on 4 receptions, and he had a touchdown as well. Got to give credit where credit is due because when I look at Arkansas and see how well they played, the quarterback, Taylor Green, 256 yards, 19 of 32, 3 touchdowns. And wide receiver, Omega Blake, had 118 yards, 7 receptions on the day, and he had a touchdown. That final score was 45-42, and number 4 Texas A&M barely had. They hung on, and it was by a thread. That game could have went either way. So I still give credit where credit is due because I still feel like Arkansas can be over 500 if some of these close games were determined by them actually being on top. They're 2-5 right now, but you cannot sleep on that team because eventually they're going to upset a top-ranked team, and just unfortunately, it wasn't this week. This was a good one right here with number 5 Ole Miss versus number 9 Georgia Bulldogs. I enjoyed this game because it was back and forth, and at one point I thought the Ole Miss was going to pull away with it until they didn't. No disrespect, but Trinidad Chamberlain played actually okay in this game with 263 yards, 19 to 36, and a score. I feel like he was passing too much. But at the same time, too, I like to say Trinidad Chamberlain was effective on the ground as well. 42 yards, 9 carries, and 2 scores. And that still wasn't enough. That lets you know how good this game was. I don't feel like the defense stepped up on this game. They only got good plays when they needed it. Gunnar Stockton had 289 yards through the air, 26 to 31, and he had 4 touchdowns. And I would like to say, too, on everything, you guys, my apologies. I would like to definitely put up everything what I'm talking about so you know what's going on and what I'm saying. I was just so excited about everything right now that I forgot to put up what was going on with my NCAA football weekend recap. The crazy part is it was a okay run game. Nate Frazier didn't play as well as he normally play. He had 17 carries, 72 yards. They really didn't need him because I feel like the offense, when it came to Gunnar Stockton and the touchdowns, was definitely the best execution that they had. He stayed in the pocket. He stayed strong, and they went toe to toe. It was really good. It was more like who can outlast each other on offense. Because, like I said, Trinidad Chamberlain played really good. The guys looked really sharp through the first 3 quarters. In the fourth quarter, I just believed everything collapsed. At the very end, Georgia ended up coming back and pulling off the miraculous victory. That final score was 43 to 35. That was a really good game. And then another good game that I would like to talk about too was Tennessee and Alabama. It was kind of close at first until it wasn't. And I believe the part where I think the game just turned in a momentum switch was when it came to they were on a goal. And I believe it was like on the 5 yard line, maybe the 10. And when they were on the goal line, they was trying to throw a touchdown. And you see the Alabama players saw where they were passing the ball to. He came up, he read the play, and when he seen where the ball was going, he picked the ball off, and it was a 98-yard touchdown, pick six. And it was right before the half. I think that took the life out of number 11 Tennessee. But number 6 Alabama been playing pretty well after the disappointing loss to Florida State. That was a big upset at the time, but it seems like now Alabama's going in the right direction while Florida State is trending in the wrong direction. They lost to Stanford, and that's like the third back-to-back loss that they suffered right now. It's a few things that happened too that I would like to talk about. What surprised me was when I found out with Caleb DeBoer that they said he had the best record versus AP ranked teams. Caleb DeBoer right now in his 2 years in Alabama is 19-3 with a .864 percentage. Then Frank Lehigh is 32-5-4. Pete Carroll's 35-9. Jock Sunderland is 8-2-1. Urban Meyer was 44-15, and Ryan Day is 25-9. So yeah, I was definitely impressed when I seen that, and that just let me know too when it comes to everything. I respect what Caleb DeBoer is trying to do right now. I'm not trying to, look past some of the flaws that he had. But yeah, in year two, I think after that one game, he just started zipping off really big victories. And just like to give credit where credit is due. Just want to tell you guys that because I thought that was pretty important as well. But in the game, that final score was 37-20 in a game that wasn't really that close as well. I like to give credit where credit is due. Ty Simpson, I don't know where this came from. I didn't see this last season, but now he's stepping up and he's definitely going to be one of the Heisman candidates this season. He had 253 yards, 19 of 29 through the air, and he had 2 touchdowns. I was surprised too because Joey Aguilar I thought would have played a little better. He had 268 yards, 28 of 44. I feel like that was way too much passing. He had a touchdown and he had that pick six that I told you about to close out the half. Deshaun Bishop played pretty well. He had 14 carries, 123 yards, and he had 2 touchdowns on the day. And Braylon Staley, the wide receiver, had 10 receptions, 92 yards, and he had a score as well. It was a really exciting game between two top ranked teams. Number 11, Tennessee, we figured with them, they give up a lot when it comes to defense. The defense is not as stout as it used to be in the past years. And with Alabama high-powered offense and them having a okay defense, I kind of figured at home that they would be able to handle business. So 37-20, that was a huge victory for Alabama, and they pulled off 4 or 5 straight. So yeah, I have to give them credit where credit is due. This was the shocker right here, and I want to talk about this one too. Number 7, Texas Tech losing to Arizona State. That final score was 22-26, Arizona State. Just when we write them off, Arizona State always do something and they surprise. Sam Levitt had 319 yards, 28 of 47, and he had a touchdown. And the running back, Raleek Brown, had 69 yards on 19 carries and a score as well. And the kid right now, one of the best wide receivers in the game, Jordan Tyson, looked good, and he definitely stepped up and played the part. 105 yards on 10 receptions and a touchdown. Crazy part is Will Hammond didn't play good like I thought that he would. He played average at best. 167 yards, 22 of 37, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. And also, he had 15 carries, 47 yards, and a touchdown. Just didn't really feel like that they did enough or did what I thought they were going to do because I thought it was going to be a blowout, how power their offense has been. but Arizona State punched them in the mouth, and it was a really good game. Number seven, Texas Tech ended up falling to Arizona State, and one thing I wanted to definitely put out there too, and let you guys know that Arizona State is 6-1 versus ranked teams when Sam Levitt starts. They just beat Texas Tech 22-26. Then in this season two, 2025, number 24 TCU, they beat them 27-24. 24, they ended up losing to Texas. And of course, that was the championship game, but it was very good and it was close to 39-31 victory. But then again, in year 2024, they beat number 16 Iowa State. They beat BYU 28-23. That Iowa State score, I'm sorry, was 45-19 in a blowout fashion. And then last year, too, they beat Kansas State, who was very disappointing because I thought they were going to do better, especially with the good quarterback, Avery Johnson. But that score was 24-14. And then they beat the Utah Utes as well. It was a very good team. And that final score was 27-19. So out of all those games, the 6-1, they only lost to Texas, and that was in the championship game. And that could have went either way. And that's when we was introduced to the battering ram himself, Bam Bam Cam Scatterball. Okay. Like I said, that final score was number seven falling 22 to Arizona State 26. I want to move on and I want to talk about what happened with Vanderbilt, number 17 Vanderbilt versus number 10 LSU. A lot of people are starting to lose faith in LSU's coach. I'm surprised that he's still coaching right now. But at the end of the day, I think that at the end of this season, he possibly won't be there anymore. When I look at this too, I like to say Gary Nussmeyer, I thought he was going to be a little better than what he was, but he's not really as bad. He's not the only issue. I know that whole line is not as good, and the defense is not what it used to be. He had 225 yards through the air, 19 of 28 and two scores. But Diego Pava has been really playing gutsy football as of late. Average day, if you ask me, when it came to the passing game. 160 yards, 14-22, and a touchdown, but not so fast. He was the run game, 86 yards, 17 carries, and he also had additional two touchdowns as well. So when you see that guy play, for the most part, he's a dual threat, and he's played pretty well too. LSU fell to Vanderbilt at home, and it was 31-24. And Brian Kelly will definitely be looking for a new job. This was a pretty okay contest too because it went back and forth, but I just feel like Notre Dame, no matter how many losses they have on them, they're in the playoffs until they're not. When you looked at this game, I think it was more of a good run game than anything. CJ Carr had 136 yards, was like mediocre at best, 16 to 26, a touchdown and interception. But that kid, Jeremiah Love, had 228 yards. Yes, you're hearing this correctly, on 24 carries, and he had a touchdown. My issue was with UFC's quarterback, Maeva. He had 328 yards, but he was 22 of 42, which I feel like he was throwing the ball around too much. He had two touchdowns and he had two interceptions on the day. Jacoby Lang looked pretty good. Six receptions, 111 yards, and he had a touchdown on the day too. But that still wasn't enough to beat Notre Dame. And Notre Dame ended up coming on top of that game, and it was 34-24. They ended up being the victors, and I had to give them credit where credit is due because they lost some questionable games, but they're still ranked number 13, 5-2. Hey, I like their chances still. If they could just win throughout, I believe Notre Dame will be in the playoffs. Another interesting one. I picked this one and I thought the Utah Utes would have won this game. Surprised that they didn't. It was close, but then I still feel like when you look at this young kid right now, I don't think that he's a polished quarterback. Devin Dampier, 244 yards through the air, 20 of 36, two touchdowns, and he had a pick on the day. And BYU, I just feel like Bear Botchmeyer did enough. 166 yards through the air, 13 of 22, and a touchdown. It was a pretty good back and forth game, but I feel like at the end, BYU had just a little bit too much. And number 15, BYU knocked off number 23, Utah. Crazy thing was the Missouri game went into double overtime for them to beat Auburn. Auburn's always in every game, so you can't sleep on Auburn, especially when they were at home. That's another good team. Besides Arkansas being 2-5, I wouldn't sleep on them neither, and especially Auburn because most of the games they've been in and it's been competitive. That final score was 23-17. And when I seen this game too, I feel like Bale Bribula, man, I hate saying that name. He did just enough, but I still feel like he didn't do well in that game. He could have did much better. 252 through the air, 23 of 40, and the two picks was very costly. It was more or less like the run game in this one because when I look at this, Ahmad Hardy had 58 yards, 24 carries, and two scores. But it wasn't really too much high powered offense when it came to, the receivers making touchdowns or flashy plays. But on the other hand, when you look at it, Jeremiah Cobb did just enough. He had 111 yards on 19 carries. And when you look at it too, the wide receiver Cam Coleman did well with, 108 yards on six receptions. But this game was more or less determined on the ground and some really good defense on both ends. But when I look at this one, number 16, Missouri barely hung on, but then they still won. That final score in double overtime was 23-17. Another crazy game was too close for comfort, in my opinion, was Washington State. They're 3-4, and they played number 18, Virginia. That final score was 22-20. It was a decent contest, but then I still feel like that was too close for comfort with a top ranked team. Another contest that really surprised me too, and it's like Texas. I'm definitely a lot worried. I was a little worried, but I'm definitely worried now because University of Kentucky should have won this game, but Texas ended up winning this game at the end. But Archie Manning and his performances hasn't been well neither. I definitely wanted to say that. Archie Manning had 132 yards, 12 of 27, and that was it. The person who actually helped drive this team was um, Quintrevon Weisner. He had 37 yards on 12 carries and a touchdown. Very mediocre as far as the run games. It wasn't there. And Cutter Boyle had 14 carries and a touchdown. He had 258 yards through the air as well, 31-39, and he had an interception. But like I said, that was a really good contest. I thought University of Kentucky should have won, but at the end of the day, Archie Manning did enough to win for Texas, and that final score was 16-13 in overtime. And it was another upset on the day, too, as well. Number 22, Memphis fell to UAB, which I thought it wasn't no chance in hell that they would lose to this team, and I was wrong. When I seen this game, Ryder Burton played well enough to win this game. Ryder Burton had 251 yards through the air, 20 of 37. He had three touchdowns. He had a pick on the day, but he did much better than A.J. Hill did, with Memphis. He had 175 yards, 13 of 25, correction, a touchdown, and he had a pick on the day. But that final score was Memphis, number 22, Memphis falling to UAB, who I thought didn't have no reason being in this game at all whatsoever. And that final score was USB came on top, and UAB had 31 points of their 24. I want to move on now, and I want to talk about a lot of interesting things and a lot of exciting things that was in the NFL. We made our picks, and I want to look in on our picks because I know some of them probably be, butchered after what happened. I'm definitely glad that I picked the right one when I wasn't so sure at the moment because a lot of injuries had a lot to do with it. But I want to step in and I want to talk about the Thursday night games. Congratulations to Prime. Thank you, Amazon, for giving us some really good games. It's been very mediocre as of late. And I just thank God that you guys started to look in, notice the games wasn't that good. Jim Mance even complained about it before, and I think he was crucified for saying that, but at least he was being honest because we wasn't getting the best competition on Thursday, and I feel like we're definitely starting to get that now with the slate of games that we had, and even the game coming up this week as well. The Pittsburgh Steelers going to Cincinnati to play the Cincinnati Bengals. And not only this, but I want you guys to hear me out. You had a situation where Joe Flacco was with the Cleveland Browns. He ended up leaving and going to the Bengals. And I think Mike Tomlin had a problem with that, saying, why would you have a guy who was your starter on your team from the beginning? And you ended up sending him into the same division for crumbs. Either you know something I don't know, or I don't think that that was a smart move. And funny, when he said that, it definitely aged well because they ended up playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that game definitely didn't end the way I thought it was. Because if I'm not mistaken, I definitely picked the Pittsburgh Steelers to pull this game off. Aaron Rodgers had 249 yards, 23 of 34, 4 touchdowns, and he had 2 picks on the game that were very costly. But Joe Flacco, man, he cooked the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, and I definitely feel like they deserve better. I want to know what's going on over there because T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward, Hightower, a lot of the guys was over there on that team, and they were playing that game. Jalen Ramsey, it wasn't like they had a lot of injuries, and Joey Porter Jr. Flacco had 342 yards through the air, 31 to 47, and 3 touchdowns. Chase Brown had 108 yards on 11 carries, and it was just really crazy because both run games was going crazy because Jalen Warren actually had 127 yards off 16 carries as well. Pat Fryermuth looked really good in this game, and that's like his security blanket now. But Pat Fryermuth definitely wasn't getting the credit which credit deserved that right now. He was definitely their best wide receiver at tight end. He had 111 yards on 5 receptions and 2 scores. And Jamar Chase had 161 yards, 16 receptions, and a touchdown. It was just a really good game, back and forth. It was exciting because you had some picks and a little defense, but for the most part, it was all offense. And Joe Flacco pulled off a big upset on Thursday. That final score was 33-31, and the Bengals won, and they're on cloud nine right now because after beating Pittsburgh, that's giving them definitely hope because I know that this year that Joe Burrow should be back soon. And I think if Flacco can give them just enough firepower and play and utilize those good wide receivers and T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, by the time, Joe Burrow come back, they might still have a chance at a run to make it to the playoffs. And I still feel like their playoff hopes are still alive until it's not. The New England Patriots played the Tennessee Titans. This was the Mike Vrabel Bowl. I definitely was interested to see what was going to happen. And at first, they punched New England in the mouth, and it looked like it was going to be a good game, of course, until it wasn't. Cam Ward didn't play that bad, though, in this game. He had 255 yards, 25 to 34 touchdown, and he had a pick on the day. Drake May has been looking exceptionally well, 223 yards through the air, 21 of 23, had a really good quarterback rating, and he had 2 touchdowns. Ramondre Stevenson really started stepping his game up as well, and that's why I believe Travion Henderson is not really playing as much right now. And what surprised me is Ramondre Stevenson, his fumble problems he had, he's definitely starting to clean that up because Mike Vrabel giving him faith and he believed in his players, and that's all they needed. And New England's starting to roll right now. And like we said before in the past, with that schedule, I definitely feel like what I said earlier before, that I believe they'll be a 9-10 win team. That's definitely going to be easy. The 88 yards off 18 carries and the touchdown was a huge day for him as well. And the only person who really stepped up on the other end with the Tennessee Titans was Shamir Dyke. He had 70 yards, 4 receptions, and a touchdown, but it's not really too many people over there that's doing well right now. Calvin Ridley, yeah, he's back, but it's like I just feel like they're wasting his talents. I wouldn't be surprised if he'd be available in the trade deadline. Not only that, but I know too, if you guys haven't heard yet, Tyler Lockett ended up requesting a trade and he should be with another team at any time by now. Just wanted to give you guys a heads up on that. And that final score was 31-13. This was a really good game. No, it wasn't. Well, it was a good game for me because I'm a fantasy football team owner, and Matthew Stafford went crazy in London. But this wasn't a good game. I take that back, you guys. My apologies. Jaguars usually have the home field advantage. They was one of the first teams who were going over to London and playing, and they did well for the longest. But at this point, no, it didn't work to their advantage. The Rams really beat them and beat them really bad. Matthew Stafford had 182 yards, 21 to 33, and 5 touchdowns. Trevor Lawrence, who I thought got it together when they beat Kansas City on that Monday night football game, and they took everything they could with the pick six and just Trevor Lawrence balling out of his mind. Been playing pretty average lately. 296 yards, 23 of 48, and he had a touchdown. There was a lot of plays where they went on fourth down and didn't execute. Very poor execution. And Liam Cohen, I don't know what's going on over there. It seemed like you figured it out until you didn't. And that needs to definitely be addressed and cleaned up. Travis Hunter had 101 yards, 18 receptions, and he got his first NFL touchdown. They needed him more on offense, I believe, because it was very stagnant, but they could have used him a little more on defense as well. But Matthew Stafford really balled out that game, and I had to give credit where credit is due. And I was definitely glad to have him on my fantasy football team. That final score was 35-7, and it wasn't even close. It was just a really bad game. I just want to give the score to this game because it was very bad, and I want to be respectful to my audience. It's not really worth really giving a lot of effort into. The Kansas City Chiefs blanked the Las Vegas Raiders, and Pete Carroll and that front office too, with Tom Brady and Mark Davis. It's a lot of problems over there, man. What are you going to do with Geno Smith? I don't really feel like he should be there. You should definitely be looking forward to your future quarterback as well, because he's definitely not that guy. And when you lose this bad to where it's 2 minutes and 35 seconds on the clock, where the other team could take a victory knee, come on, guys, y'all got to give us better than that. The Dolphins lost to the Cleveland Browns. Yes, you heard this correctly, and it was really bad too. Dylan Gabriel didn't do much. He definitely was being carried by that defense. And this young man right here, Quinshawn Jenkins, he really looked good, and he definitely was a good pickup for them in Cleveland. 84 yards, 25 carries, and 3 touchdowns. Tua Tagovailoa shouldn't be a quarterback right now. And it's funny, too, because him and Mike McDaniel's been having issues back and forth in the media where Tua was saying guys wasn't coming into meetings and showing up when they supposed to execute the game plan. And that's what Mike McDaniel was saying, well, I would like for us to actually go in the game without throwing 10 interceptions and, playing clean football. So it's been a lot of jabs going back and forth. I don't know what's going to happen. I definitely don't think Tua should be there next season. But at the same time, Mike McDaniels might lose his job because it seemed like they stopped playing for him. And definitely losing to Cleveland 31-6 speak volumes. And Tua's 100 yards, 3 interceptions don't help. Another bad game. I just want to give the score to the 13-6 victory with the Panthers and the Jets. And I don't really feel like that deserved a lot of my breath. Let me get a little piece of water. Take me a water break on that one. That final score was 13-6, and it was a terrible game like I thought it would be. The Saints and the Bears wasn't a great game, but the Bears have been playing pretty good lately. The defense been stepping up. They haven't really had a lot of competition, but at the same time, they beat the Cowboys pretty bad. And then they got the revenge game on the Washington Commanders. The Saints are not really a good team. Spencer Rattler, I thought that he'd be a good quarterback or maybe a bench quarterback. One of those guys who he's right on the cusp of being a good starter, but no, he's definitely what we all thought he was, and that's a backup at best. He had 233 yards, 20 of 32. He had two touchdowns and three interceptions on the day. And when I'm telling you this too, I'm telling you, Caleb Williams didn't do as good as game either. 176 yards, 15 of 26, and he had an interception. But DeAndre Swift has been showing what I thought that he'd show after getting out of college. And he's been pretty healthy, and he's been definitely their offense as of late because he's been balling out. 124 yards on 19 carries, and he had a touchdown on the day. This was a really good game right here. The problems are still going on in Minnesota because they have a hell of a defense. The offense hasn't really played that good, though. Speaking of, Carson Wentz had 313 yards, and this was basically the Carson Wentz Bowl because don't forget, you guys, he was drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles. They did really good that one year, and when he ended up getting hurt, Nick Foles took over and won the Super Bowl, and they didn't look back since for Carson Wentz. He had 313 yards, the 26 of 42, and two picks on the day. Jordan Mason, 57 yards, 15 carries, a touchdown. And Jordan Addison had 128 yards on nine receptions. This week, Jalen Hurts definitely stepped up, and the offense looked a little better. They looked like they were breathing at least. It wasn't the best, but they looked like they were breathing. Jalen Hurts had 326 yards, 19 to 23, and three touchdowns. Saquon Barkley didn't really do as much because, that's a stout defense. So definitely a good defensive front over there. Those guys definitely wasn't letting any runs go by. It was 44 yards on 18 carries. But the person of the game, I give props to, AJ Brown for just keeping steady head. We know that he had a little friction of what was going on with Jalen Hurts, and it's still gonna be there with Jalen Hurts. And when you got Devontae Smith on the team who has the Alabama ties, but I still feel like he wants the ball more. But he definitely got the ball when he needed it. And I feel like AJ Brown stepped up with a score and he closed out the game with a really good fourth down play where he executed and got the ball into the red zone. But Devontae Smith had 183 yards on nine receptions and a score. He was open and he was open often. That final score was 28 to 22 in a really decent game. Indiana Jones and the Indianapolis Colts has been balling out lately. I definitely got to give credit where credit is due because this was a game that Harbaugh and those guys came in and I thought they was going to give them a challenge, but they really didn't. Justin Herbert threw the ball through the air and he threw the ball too much. 420 yards, 37 to 55, three touchdowns, and he had two picks. Mac Jones, on the other hand, had 288 yards, 23 of 34, and two touchdowns. But the person who carried this team was Jonathan Taylor, and he has been balling the last few weeks. When he's healthy and you got a decent Mac Jones not Mac Jones, I'm sorry, you guys, Daniel Jones, who can keep the ball from being picked and playing clean, this team is pretty hard to beat. They already got a stout defense. The offense looked good. The offensive line is one of the best in the league. They got a good defensive front. Man, this is a team that I expected to do well with Anthony Richardson, and he didn't do what he was supposed to do. Now, Daniel Jones, thinking about it, if he would have stayed in Minnesota, he could have had a job there, but he really made a home with the Indianapolis Colts. But the 94 yards, 16 carries, and three touchdowns from Jonathan Taylor, man, that just shows when he's healthy, he's definitely one of the top five, if not top three running backs in the game. That final score is the team with the best record in the league right now. The Indianapolis Colts, 6-1. They are playing a 4-3 team who definitely needs some win. And I'll definitely get into the predictions next week. But that final score was 38-24, and it wasn't even really that close. This was a game that had my head scratching right here. The New York Giants versus the Denver Broncos, and the New York Giants was giving them all they could handle. I still feel like it wasn't a lot of touchdowns when it needed to be, and they just let the game stay too close. The funny thing is, in this game, yes, and I'm gonna tell you that when you see this game, if you didn't see it, it was insane because they scored often in this game, the New York Giants. But At the same time, the Broncos looked like they didn't have an answer until they scored the 33 points in the fourth quarter. Yes, you hear me correctly. The Denver Broncos scored 33 points in the fourth quarter, and it was impressive. Jackson Dart definitely looked the part, no pun intended. He had 283 yards, 15 to 33. He had three touchdowns. He had a pick on the day, but he still looked really good. Bo Nix had 279 yards, 27 to 50. I feel like he threw the ball a little more than he should, but he had two touchdowns on the day as well. This was a good day, and it was a very emotional day because Peyton Manning, basically have a statue in there in the Colts Hall of Fame. Him and one of the players, Demarius Thomas, who died, and he died too soon. I want to give prayers to his family, and I know they were so happy. It definitely gets me a little emotional when his mom seen the statue. She touched the face of the statue and she was just very happy. They went to the game and it looked like the game was going to be a blowout from the Giants, and the team to have that heart and perseverance to come back and win this game against the Giants. Like I said, 33 unanswered points in that fourth quarter. That might be enough for Brian Daboll to be not only on a high seat, but going somewhere soon. I wouldn't be surprised if they continue to lose, if they say, well, Jackson Dart is our man, but we need to move on and we need to find us a new head coach. I wouldn't even argue with that at this point. Green Bay Packers versus the Arizona Cardinals. This was too close for comfort right here. And I think in this game, if they didn't have Josh Jacobs, this game wouldn't have been won by them, but it was still a good game. Jordan Love been playing average like he has average late, but he hasn't been losing ball games and trying to play hero ball. So I can respect that. That shows a little bit more of his growth. He has 179 yards, 19 of 29. He had a touchdown, but Josh Jacobs had 55 yards, 13 carries and two scores, and the one score was the walk-off victory. Jacoby Brissett's been playing pretty well. I'm looking for him to drown and really start playing bad soon. But the last two games he played in, he executed the offense quite well. 279 yards, 25 to 36, and two scores in this game. And Trey McBride looked really good. That's a hell of a tight end, and people don't really give too much credit to because of the market in Arizona. He had 74 yards, 10 receptions, and two scores in this game. So yeah, for the most part, Josh Jacobs held that offense, on his back, with the two touchdowns. But then you had Trey McBride as well, who was the security blanket of Jacoby Brissett. And that final score was 27-23. Really decent game, better than what I expected. The Cowboys game surprised me because they blew out the Commanders, and I wasn't expecting that blowout victory. I know that Jaden Daniels is not 100%. He had 156 yards and a touchdown. He ran the ball a few times, 35 yards, 8 carries, and a touchdown. But it wasn't really his best day, definitely. Dak's been looking pretty sharp as well. Still one of the guys I feel like you got to pay attention to when it comes to just execution. And they looked really sharp in this game. Of course, you didn't have a lot of the weapons that you normally see on this team, too. I definitely would like to say that. You didn't have Terry McLaurin or Debo Samuels in the game, so that made a heck of a difference. But the defense couldn't really stop nobody because that final score was 44-22. And like I said, Dak Prescott had 264 yards, 21 to 30, and three touchdowns. And then you had Javonte Williams, who just been looking the part. I feel like that was a heavy and it was a hell of a pickup for them because he runs the ball better than most of the running backs that they had, including Ezekiel Elliott. 19 carries, 116 yards, and he had a score. CeeDee Lamb, welcome back. He had 110 yards, five receptions, and a touchdown. And that score wasn't definitely even close. So I just wanted to move past that. I didn't want to, make the game any harder for any Commanders fans out there. Another good matchup, this was the Sunday night game. I definitely could say I enjoyed this one too. The Atlanta Falcons versus the San Francisco 49ers. It was a lot of defense. And if you don't like defense, you didn't like this game. Michael Penix had 241 yards, 21 to 38 in a score. They stopped Bijan Robinson, and that was the main thing. And that was the vocal point of them winning. He had 14 carries with 40 yards. Mac Jones did enough just to win. He had 152 yards, 17 of 26, if I'm not mistaken. That man won 3 or 4 games. He had a pick on the day too, but Christian McCaffrey definitely put the team and the game on his shoulders right there. He played like I'm normally used to seeing him play. 129 yards, 24 carries, 2 touchdowns, 72 yards, and off of 7 receptions as well. So he did everything that they needed him to do, and that's why the victory went to San Francisco. And they're 5-2 on the year, and they've been doing pretty well without Brock Purdy. The controversy was that they felt like Mac Jones was supposed to have been picked there in the draft when, they ended up picking Trey Lance too. So yeah, I want to see how this work out when Brock Purdy come back. I still feel like Brock Purdy is a more polished quarterback, and when he's healthy and when he has his healthy pieces playing, they look well. So I want to see what's going to happen when he's able to play again. That final score was 20-10. I want to move on to the Monday night football games. This is going to be one that I wanted to talk about because I was very excited. I picked the Lions, but I was nervous because when I found out Taylor Decker, Kirby Joseph, and Tyrion Arnold was, practicing, but he didn't play. I like to give credit where credit is due with this team too, because the defense stepped up. You had guys, that I didn't even know at the time, that I seen that play really good, like Hallett. He played well. Nick Whiteside, who played for the Colts at one point, stepped up. You had Amik Robertson, who definitely is looking for the challenge. It was guys that I'm not normally used to saying, you know, and they played well. I was really surprised in seeing that too. You had a lot of good pass rush. Derek Barnes stepped up. Man, Aleem McNeil came back. The front looked good. Just was really exciting, and it was a really good victory for the Detroit Lions. Like to give credit where credit is due. Um, Kelvin Shepard, he looked good as their defensive coordinator. I know some of the games people were saying, man, we missing Aaron Glenn. I know Aaron Glenn would like it to be the other way, where he were back here, especially with an 0-7 New York Jets team. But we've been doing what we have to do, and I know a lot of people get tired of saying the next man up. But in this case, it was the next man up. And I'm thankful for all those guys. Rocky Ashin came back and did well. Like I said, you had Whiteside, you had Hallett, Amik Robertson. It was guys that we're not used to calling their names on the regular. But it's good to see all of them step up and play really well on defense. And the unfortunate part about it was our defense was patchwork. But then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense was patchwork as well. Emeka Nguka. And Emeka Nguka, he definitely played, but I don't think that he was 100%. But then, unfortunately, too, the news of Mike Evans is going to be out, and I believe that he might be out the rest of the year. With a clavicle injury. So I would be surprised if he come back. Definitely how far we are in the season. If he do, that'd be great. But at the same time, I believe that's why they got Emeka Egbuka. Because of the fact is, now that you got him injured and he's possibly out for the year, Chris Godwin's not 100%, and they've always had that issue with either one of the two guys being out. Now you have that wide receiver that you got, in Amika. And I think that this was a good plug move for them and their organization. And I respect the Tampa Bay Buccaneers organization because they always promote and they always pay the guys who's in the organization versus getting a lot of big players. I mean, Hassan Reddick was the exception, but still, they always, respect and pay the homegrown boys just like the Detroit Lions do. It wasn't the best offensive performance, but it was good enough for us to win. And I appreciate that, especially having a banged up team like this. I wasn't even sure if we was going to pull off the victory. Like I said, I still pulled and I picked the Lions. Jared Goff had 241 yards, 20 of 29, a touchdown and a pick on the day. But the person who definitely carried this team on offense, got to give credit where credit is due. My man's Jahmyr Gibbs. A lot of people thought that it was a joke and they were pissed off that we got Jahmyr Gibbs in the draft and was like, why we didn't try to go up and give it John Robinson. This is the reason why. This man was a dual threat in his game. He had 136 yards on 17 carries and two touchdowns, and he had some really good receiving yards. He had over 200 scrimmage yards in his game. So we used him as a dual threat, like they said they would do a lot more of this year. And Amon St. Brown definitely did better than what he did last week on some crucial plays. He had 6 receptions, 86 yards, and a score. Baker Mayfield had 228 yards, 20 of 50, a touchdown, and an interception on the day. But like I said, after Mike Evans went down and you still have a banged up receiving core, I was just glad that we had enough to be able to execute and play good defense and actually won this game. I was very excited, seeing this. Called my partner, told him, hey, man, what's up, man? I'm definitely surprised in this performance. I was definitely telling people about how Kelvin Shepard stepped his game up as the defensive coordinator, and it's always the next man up. And I'm glad that we was able to do this. But now we have this 24-9 victory, and we're still licking our wounds and trying to get healthy. What I want from the Detroit Lions right now is for us to get healthy. Thank God right now we have a bye week. Kirby Joseph was out, Taylor Decker. You still have DJ Reed. We're looking forward, Tyrion Arnold. And unfortunately, that knucklehead Brian Branch, he could have been here, but we'll have him back. So it was a blessing that we won that game, and we're 5-2, and we're going to have this bye. But I just want them to look at this game, and I want them to reflect on that. And I just want the core values to be respected now, because not only did we play and we won this game with a patchwork defense, but at the same time, guys that could have played who was out, I'm just glad that now we're going to get healthy. So by us having this bye week, I'm thankful, because now we're going to be in this bye. We'll be able to get our players together, and hopefully we have a lot more players. It definitely helped with the presence of Elaine McNeil coming back. But I would definitely like to see Tyrion Arnold. If he's not back, at least I'm hoping DJ Reed, one of the guys at cornerback position, be back, or at least both, if that's the case. I would like Decker back and at least Kirby Joseph. We'll have some of those guys back, and I just wanted to, take it one step, one day at a time. I'd rather be injured now and get healthy and then try to play and compete in the playoffs at the end of the season than have all the guys hurt close to the end of the season and having a lackluster season. So congratulations on that win. It was a very huge win, and I'm so proud of my Detroit Lions. One pride for sure. So I want to say too, in the next game, because I'm moving on and I wanted to talk about that one. It was just a very bad game. You have a good and bad game on Monday night. It was pretty good as far as the scoring, but the defenses played really well on both ends. The problem was, I just feel like it's very sad to see CJ Stroud go through what he's going through with that bad offensive line. He made some poor decisions, and I think that this is a sophomore slump as well, but he don't get protection. Several times that you've seen in a game and you heard them say, nobody was touched. They just went straight in and tackled CJ Stroud. I understand you're focusing on your defense and trying to get different weapons and things like when you got Nick Chubb, but you need to get that offensive line together. And I just feel like they're not playing with enough passion. It was so many times in the game, like when they got that fumble touchdown, that they were in the game. They had two goal line stances that didn't really get any points. You got a touchdown on one, and then you didn't score on the other possession. Just feel like they need to execute and play better, because that game could have been more excited if it was more or less better executed. But like I said, it's a painful game to watch the Houston Texans play and how well we thought they were going to be. But that final score was 27-19. It wasn't a bad game, but I thought that it would have been a little better if CJ Stroud had protection and was able to execute some of them plays. And that 1927 victory definitely let me know still Seattle is a decent team, but Sam Darnold can definitely still be rattled. And I've noticed that because he's seen ghosts in the past. And this is the month, October, where I definitely think that he can still see him if he don't play well. I want to move on now, and I want to get to what I'm going to give you now, my predictions. I want to start off and give you my NCAA football week 9 predictions. I want to go off, and I want to do this really fast. I want to start off with Michigan versus Michigan State. How sweet it is, you guys. I always love this rivalry right here. And when I look at this rivalry, I think that even if we're in a rebuilding mode right now, we're not as bad as this team, but you got to throw, records out the window when you got these rivalry games because this is their playoff game right here. And if we can continue to play well, I'm not saying we're going to the playoffs, but hell, we'll go to a bowl game at least. Not like I believe Michigan State would be, but still at the same time, if I have to give my honest opinion, I'm going to go with Michigan over Michigan State, and I'll take those points, the 14 and a half. Yes, I'm being disrespectful to little brother. I said it. UCLA versus number two Indiana. I'm definitely going with Indiana, and I'm taking the 25 and a half points because I feel like right now, the best quarterback in the league right now is the kid from Indiana, Fernando Mendoza. I definitely think that he's the guy right now. I still want to know what Nico Amelueva is going to do. I feel like it was a bad move on him from leaving Tennessee when he did and came over here. But they ended up getting some big wins. They're 3-4 right now. The best thing they can do for UCLA is to go into a bowl game and try to, bounce back this season and try to do better and execute good next year. Don't really see them doing much. Feel like I said, it was still a bad decision. But when it come down to Fernando Mendoza, I still feel like right now he's the best player in the game right now until they lose. But they're 7-0, and how they beat up on Oregon recently, I definitely feel like the 25 and a half points is well respected. You have Syracuse and number 7 Georgia Tech. I'm going to go with Georgia Tech, and I'm going to take the under on this. I'm not going with 17 and a half. Number 8, Ole Miss versus number 13, Oklahoma. They have Oklahoma by 4.5 points at home, and I will not say that. I'm going to go with Ole Miss in this one. I'll take Ole Miss. Number 16, Virginia versus North Carolina. North Carolina been the laughing stock of the NCAA football, and I don't think that that's going to change. I will definitely take the 10.5 points for number 16, Virginia. Number 18, South Florida versus Memphis. I will go with South Florida in the 4.5 points. Alabama versus South Carolina. I'm not sleeping on any team, especially in the SEC, but I'm going to take Alabama in 11.5 on the road. Pretty good one right here, you guys. Don't sleep on this one. Number 15, Missouri versus number 10, Vanderbilt, but I'm taking Vandy at home in the 2.5 points. Number 11, BYU and Iowa State. I'm going to go with Iowa State, and I'll take the 3.5. I'm going to go with the upset on this one. Number 23, Illinois versus Washington. I'm going to go with another upset because I don't really trust Illinois. I think they're not what we think they are. So, yeah, I'll take the 4.5 and Washington at home. Oklahoma State and Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech gonna put a whooping on them, especially after that loss to Arizona State. And I'm gonna take the 38.5 points. Baylor versus number 21 Cincinnati. I'll take Cincinnati at home with 4.5. Number 22 Texas and Mississippi State. I'm going to go Mississippi State in the upset. Wisconsin versus number 6 Oregon. I'm going to go Oregon in the 33.5. Number 3, Texas A&M versus number 20, LSU. I'm going to go with Texas A&M, and I'm going to take them in the 2.5 points. Boston College versus 19, Louisville. I'm going to go with Louisville in the 25.5. Number 17, Tennessee versus Kentucky. I'm going to go under, and I will take Tennessee. Houston versus Arizona State. I'm going to go with Arizona State at home, and I'm going to give them that 7.5 favor. Okay, let's get to the NFL games. Let me put that up. All right, here we go. NFL Week 8 predictions. Minnesota Vikings versus the Chargers. I'll take the Chargers at home with the 3.5. Browns versus the New England Patriots. I'm going to go with the Patriots, and I'm going to take the 17.5 points. Jets versus Bengals. I'm going to go with the 6.5 in Cincinnati. Bears versus the Ravens. I'm going to go with the Ravens, surprisingly, y'all, but I'm going to go under the 6.5 because Lamar is back. Don't get it twisted, but remember that Lamar is back in this game. Dolphins versus Falcons. I'm gonna go with the Falcons in the 7.5, and I wouldn't be surprised if Mike McDaniel's is gone after this. Mike Daniels definitely shouldn't even have a job right now, but I'm just saying. Bills and Panthers, come on now. 17.5 Bills. 49ers, Texans. I'm gonna go with the 49ers. I'm surprised they got the Houston Texans at 1.5. They crazy. Giants versus Eagles. I don't think the Eagles gonna make the same mistake of losing them twice. I'm gonna go with the Eagles in the 6.5. Buccaneers and the Saints. I'm gonna go with Tampa Bay with the bounce back game, and I'm gonna take the 4.5. Titans versus Colts, please. 14.5. Not even justifying the Colts right now. I'm going with the Colts. Cowboys and the Broncos. I'm going to go with the Broncos at home in the 3.5. Packers and Steelers. Okay, come on now. Steelers, y'all do good by me. We on the bye. We can definitely use this boost. I'm gonna go with the Steelers at home. They have Green Bay with the 3.5, but I'm gonna get that to Pittsburgh at home. And I think you guys are crazy for even betting against Pittsburgh at home. Prove me wrong. Washington Commanders versus Kansas City. I'm going to go with the upset, and I'm going to go with the Washington Commanders, and I'm going to take the under on this one because they got KC for 10.5. Definitely look like KC's the better team, but I'm gonna give credit where credit is due because if Terry McLaurin and Debo can play in this game, I'm going to pick the upset, and I'm going to go with the Commanders. I'd like to say thank you all for chiming in and everybody who do, and for the ones who don't. I would like to say hit those comments hard when we, do like our shows. Of course, we want you not to only to hit and click on them comments and give us your opinions of what you think. You can actually hit me up at my social media networks as well and let me know what you want, whether you like what we're saying or if you want us to talk about a little more and go into depth on certain things. You are now watching the Guru Perspective. You can find me at Hoovy on Instagram, WHOOVI. And then also you can catch me on Facebook at Sports Guru to you. And then you can catch me on TikTok. I like to say thank you all for showing the love, and what you show on TikTok is highly appreciated. It's Hugh.Lee6 on TikTok. And you can catch me as well on Sports Guru to you. That's my Gmail account, which is sportsguru2you at gmail.com. Thank you all. And I'd like to say have a blessed day. And I might not be doing the show next Tuesday. I'll let you know more. Until then, I would like to say peace. And until next time.